Hey guys, Mark Kaler here, Galley Stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. Real quick before we release this next video, we recorded this one a few weeks ago with Captain Kari, but I wanted to let you know that the ALS fundraiser we've been talking about on the last several episodes, we actually have a date for it now. It's going to be on May 15th. The festivities will be lasting from 4 to 10 p.m. 4 to 8 will be the actual fundraiser, and then 8 to 10 we'll actually have a live band performing. This will all take place at Bad Jimmy's Brewing Company there on Leary Way in Ballard. And also, we've got a commitment from Trident Seafoods to send their Fork and Fin food truck. It's all Alaska wild pollock. Not only are they sending it there, guys, but they're going to donate 100% of all sales directly to the ALS Fund in Pat Dwyer's name. So be looking forward to that one, and also our live broadcast that day. That's a bit of a surprise coming up. So we'll have a live broadcast that day at 3 p.m. You can find us on Facebook for that, so go ahead and get that follow in. And if you or your company would like to be involved also in the ALS event, go ahead and shoot us an email at mark@galleystories.net. Without further ado, here is that episode for you. Hello guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we have Captain Kari Toivola. I'm going to get this at some point. Who has got quite a life experience to talk to us about. So welcome, Kari.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Welcome to the Gale on a beautiful sunny day.
Beautiful sunny day. The sun feels great.
Yeah. So let's just start right from the beginning. Where were you born and what got you into the industry?
Well, I was born in Windsor, Ontario. My folks immigrated from Finland in the early 50s, and that's where they first went, to Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And moved out to Seattle when I was still wearing diapers, you know, like a year and a half, 2 years old. Mm-hmm. We moved out to Seattle and settled in Ballard. So I grew up in the mean streets of Ballard.
Right here.
Right here, yes.
And what year would that have been?
Oh, we moved here in the year of the World's Fair, so that was 62.
62, yeah, okay. So about 82 was the peak, and you were right downtown here in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you got some stories on that for us, but let's first start with your introduction into how you got into the fishing industry, or did that come later?
Well, that came later. Growing up in Ballard, especially during the 70s when I went to high school at Ingram High School, and we would hear the stories, of the king crabbers, especially then, and it kind of sounded appealing. So,
which part, the crabbing or the money?
Probably both. The lifestyle, it sounded like an adventure, so I didn't know anything about it.
Sure.
And after high school, I was going to community college, not really sure what I was going to do. We were taking some classes there, and the opportunity came about through acquaintance of my parents. I got a job on an old salmon packer heading up to southeast Alaska, so that was my start. It was the boat was built in 1919.
What vessel was that?
It was called the LeConte.
How big was she?
It was like a 78 foot by like 13, 14 wide. Old, I believe it was originally a trap tender, built back in the day when the salmon traps were going.
And what was your responsibility on there?
Oh, I was the deckhand. I was the gopher. It was a good start, I guess. It got me in the.
And where were they fishing at?
We were in southeast Alaska, working out of Petersburg, and the majority of our summer we spent. Our run was to go down to the Tree Point area, the south end of that, near the Canadian border, in southeast Alaska, and buying gillnet fish, and then transporting them back to Petersburg. It was about an 18-hour run.
So you were literally just packing the fish, just like a tender.
We were a tender, yes.
Yep. And so how long did you do that?
For that 1978, the first year I did that. And it was an all right job, but, well, that's just... Every now and then the captain was sober, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. So that was back in the day, though.
That was back in the day, yeah, and that's kind of how I learned to drive a boat. I mean,
He'd go take a nap?
Well, no, he'd be staggering around, so somebody had to drive. But through that experience and hanging out in Petersburg, I met a gentleman, Early Hansen was his name. He was the captain of the Viking Queen, a boat owned by, he was the summer captain for tender. He was a crab boat, salmon, herring packer, cannery owned boat. and he was the captain of that. So
and this is a different Viking Queen than Kari Ness.
Yes, a different one. This was built here at Packfish, late 68, I guess.
How big was she?
110 foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And steel design?
Steel design, a modern state-of-the-art crab boat compared to the 80-year-old Woody I started on. It was a different experience.
So moved over there at what age?
I would have been like 20.
Okay.
Started on there. And did that for, I think I ended up total of 8 years on there. In between, I would be on there for tendering, and the boat went crabbing. And in those days, you didn't just get a crab job, not on a boat like that. So the crab crew would come on, and I'd go do whatever.
But what was whatever? Was
well,
that just
a couple years,
I
I got on another tender in the fall up in southeast,
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was 1981. I got a job on a different boat to go king crab. I went tendering on the Viking Queen, and I got a king crab job on a boat called the Brittany.
The Brittany.
Yes.
She's a tender nowadays.
It's a tender nowadays. Yes. It was an 80-footer then. It's been lengthened since. And so I finally got my job on the king crabber. Well, that just happened to be the year of the king crab crash. So, yeah. The year before, it was something like that boat. The season started. It was either 14 hours or 18 hours or something. Like they filled the boat.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It was, and then they'd go wait to offload. Well, the year of the king crab crash, we were probably out there for a week and a half, scratching. Maybe had a half a boatload. Went in, and then it got worse. It just, and not only did we do the Bristol Bay red crab, I didn't know any better, so I kept on it. We went up to the Pribilofs, did red crab. I don't know if I caught any crab there.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't bad enough, I went out to Adak on the same boat that fall.
Oh my goodness!
And yeah, we proceeded to not carry. It was.
So you're probably 28 then, because you.
I was 22. I was 19. I was 22 years old.
I was thinking you did 8 years on the Viking.
No, this was a side job.
Oh, okay, little filler.
So yeah, I did that, and I think we left. King crab was earlier then, so it was probably towards the end of August. By the time we brought the boat back to Seattle after the Adak ordeal, we made it just by Christmas. I remember that.
Did you make any money?
I don't know, a few $1,000s.
Okay, so not
wasn't much.
Wasn't what you had your sights on, or the dream.
No, I didn't go buy that red Corvette that Harley talked about.
Oh yeah. He didn't either. He didn't.
I know I did. Yeah.
So all right. So then I also know that you got into the Bristol Bay fishery. So how long were you up there running around chasing crab before you?
Okay. That year in the Brittany, and after that I went back on the Viking Queen. It was a pretty secure job there.
Yeah.
And did the tendering circuit. The tendering circuit there was, it wasn't just a summer deal. It was, we would leave Seattle in March, and we'd be done in September. We would do the Sitka Herring, Prince William, Cook Inlet, Togiak, Norton Sound, Cape Ramon's off herring. It was a 5 to 6 month job, and then get right into Bristol Bay salmon, and then work our way down to southeast, for the pinks in August. Generally was what we did. And then that following year, I got after the crash, jobs were available. The guys quit. I got a king crab job in the Viking Queen that year.
Okay.
So that would have been 82.
Well, you'd spent several years tendering them for them, so you probably earned a spot.
I guess I earned my spot there finally. But that was the year after the crash, and the stocks hadn't exactly came back. It was more of the same.
You have any scary experiences while you're running around doing all that?
Not really.
Really?
Maybe I didn't know any better. It probably was that I didn't know about.
Right.
But so let's see. Yeah, that king crab season. Oh, then 82, 83. I think we went a Paradise season on there, and that was more of the same. It might have made a couple $1,000.
All right.
Crab fishing was not a very profitable ordeal for those few years. So, and all this time tendering at that time, you want to ask about Bristol Bay. It always appealed to me right from the start.
Well, you were up there, right?
I was up there watching it, and seeing it. It just always appealed to me to go do that. I thought about getting into that, and I got called into the office at Icicle that owned the Viking Queen, the fleet manager, and asked me what my future plans were. I said, well, I'm kind of going to move on to this. And he goes, well, how would you like to take over running the Viking Queen? And I just about fell to the floor, you know.
Any experience prior to that, other than driving for the drunk captain back when you were?
No, other than what I learned on the Viking Queen. The captain of the Viking Queen, Erling Hansen, was the epitome of how you navigate. He was by the book, and you know, I really picked his brain a lot. And there was a elderly engineer I spent on there, Nels Evans from Petersburg. So they're kind of mentors of mine. Erling was the navigating. You know, you rounded a point at, when the Hansen handbook says 0.58 or 5/8 of a mile, by God, that's what you did, and you went on your course, and you know, everything was by the book. And,
you know, it's funny when I was being asked to send you directions, he says, the mutual friend we have, he says, just give him the coordinates, he'll be able to find it.
That's about right. Yeah.
He said you're a nav guy for sure, and you got that there then.
I would say yeah. I was always good with numbers. I was never. I mean, I did okay in school. I didn't excel, but I was always good in math and numbers. So I guess the navigating kind of caught on, and it appealed to me too.
So you've seen, being up in Bristol Bay from the tendering side, you know, you had every opportunity, because when you're on a tender, that's when you're talking to every skipper. That's when I mean, you've got a ton of opportunities at least to have an opportunity.
Yes, you do. Yeah. So that's how originally the job in the Viking Queen came about. You know, I was on another tender, and you see these guys at the dock and get to know them a little bit. And
how was that fishery different then than it is now?
Bristol Bay?
Yeah. Has it always been as chaotic?
Oh yeah, it was even more chaotic now. Probably the biggest change, besides the boats getting bigger and faster and better, the quality of the fish. I mean, guys were, you know, unloading every 12 hours, you know, knotted brailers, 2,000 pounds, and nobody had refrigeration. That was unheard of. No Bristol Bay boats had RSW, so that's probably the biggest thing, the quality of the fish.
It's coming out of there, yeah.
I mean, obviously, like I said, the boats have gotten bigger and faster and hold more and this and that.
And they're running RSW.
And well, not everyone. It should be. It's getting that way, but about half the boats now. Still a ways to go, but so the quality is greatly enhanced. That's probably the biggest change.
Otherwise, it's still the same gun show.
Pretty much.
Just with faster boats.
With faster boats.
Oh, jeez. So it's
faster boats with bigger debt.
Oh, right.
So they're hungry.
Well, speaking of bigger debt, you're building a new one right now.
Yeah, I am, but my last hurrah, I guess.
So let's get into your Bristol Bay fishery.
Okay, well we'll get to that.
We'll
I didn't get into it then. I got into running the Viking Queen.
Okay.
So,
Right.
So I did that for 4 years, and that was some quality sea time. You know, 24-year-old kid running this boat for 6 months a year.
24-year-old.
Then when I started there, yeah.
Were you running for crab too?
No, the boat did not crab fish during those years.
Okay.
There was no reason to. You know, so I got away from crabbing, and that was strictly my job. So I think I ran that for 4 years, 4 seasons of that. And I mean, it was great, but it was getting to be a job too. And one of my guys that's one of our partners now, I'll never forget, he said to me, "How many pounds of fish did you pack on here this summer?" And it was always, you know, 3, 4, just astronomical amounts. He looks at me and he goes, "You know, you can make a lot of boat payments doing that." So I was like, you know, okay, it's time to get into our own boat here. And
how did you guys meet?
Well, we knew them through fishing, but my number one partner, Roger, we've been partners for 30-some years, but we knew each other before that. We had worked together at Icicle. He'd been my engineer on the Viking Queen one year. And we just decided, got some harebrained idea to go down to the Gulf of Mexico and buy a rig tender.
Okay.
There was one had been up here called the Cloverleaf, which is quite a bit older, but it had been up here for quite a few years, and said, you know, that might work. And well, that's what we did. Went to Louisiana and found a boat that was going to work. At the time, the two of us, it was a little over our head. You know, figure out how we're going to convert this vessel over. And so we brought in 2 other Petersburg fishermen that came in. They were investors in the boat, and they knew their way around the financial world and getting into boat ownership. So we bought that boat in '86.
Okay.
So that became my number one job then.
So you're still young then.
I'm still young. Yeah, I was 27. Roger was 26. Yeah, we were young kids. And originally we were buying a tender, you know, little herring and salmon tendering. But when you did the numbers on it, well, this isn't going to quite work. How are we going to pay for this thing?
You got to keep it working.
You got to keep it working. So we got into the crab fishing. That was, you know, the boat was suitable for that. So we got into the Opelio. King crab was our first, and Opelio. And
how did the permits work back then for?
Oh, it was open access.
So
yeah,
you just needed to sign
showed
up
with a boat and went and bought a permit card from the state and got some pots and off you went.
Off you went.
Off you went.
So that's because it was just the quota was just for the entire fleet.
Yeah, there weren't that many boats involved. It wasn't overcapitalized yet. It was kind of the start of it. So anyhow, that, you know, it was a little struggle at first. First few years didn't go rosy, but we finally caught on, got the right gear, and our first year Opelios, I remember this. I'd never even seen an Opelio. Nobody on the boat, not one of myself or the 5 guys that had ever even seen an Opelio.
Oh, goodness.
We're all new fishing, but Opelio fishing was a new thing. So a little struggle at first year. We survived and gradually got better at that. And
how many were you getting a pot that year?
Oh man, I don't even remember. We didn't have the right pot, so let's forget about the first year. The second year, once we figured it out, got some more gear, re-webbed. We had bought a bunch of old pots, $50 a piece from Icicle, and that's all they were worth. They all had tanner crab, 5.5-inch web, and then Opie pot needed to have 4.5-inch web, so they're all mismatched size. So the stack was, you know, it's kind of dangerous. We got real good at re-webbing crab pots too. Me and the crew.
How many pots did you have?
I don't remember exactly, but we probably were up to 250 by then. We bought 100 new ones and 100 old ones. Bought another 50 here or there, and got them going. Eventually, we upgraded and got we ended up with a real nice string of gear on there. But anyhow, so yeah, the Opies and king crab went well, and this was in the mid-90s, 95, when I got into Bristol Bay. King crab closed again for a couple years. The stocks were down. I can't remember if it was 1 year or 2 years it closed. And I didn't really want to go tendering anymore. I just had enough of that. So got into the Bristol Bay. Just bought a permit and boat. Roger was my partner. He was an investor with me on that.
So you bought a boat then too?
Bought a boat, yeah. And that was a learning experience. It was.
Well, you hadn't fished there before.
Oh, I'd never fished there.
So never fished there before. By a boat permit, I'm going.
No, yeah, I didn't know anything about it other than watching it. It looked a lot easier from the tip.
So I asked you earlier about a scary experience. You cannot tell me that was not a scary experience to be running that boat for the first time in that kind of a chaotic fishery.
It was intimidating, yeah. That first summer time in the Johnson Hill line, and I didn't. It was something else.
Felt like a pretty small fry with all those guys running around like they were. Yeah.
However, that year, 95, was like, at that time, the biggest year ever in Bristol Bay. So we caught fish. We didn't even know what we were doing, really. Still caught fish. But after that, it kind of started to go downhill. The catch went down. The runs went down the tubes. The price was in the tubes. And I think Bristol Bay permits went down to 18,000 for a while, and we had bought it for 185 or something like that. So call it the salmon crisis years now. Poor runs and poor price, no money. Farm fish is taken over. We're doomed. La da da. So it was a doom and gloom for several years. Kind of started early 2000s. Started to gradually come back a little bit, and the runs got a little better, and price got a little better, and gradually, and until now, the last 3 years now have been kind of phenomenal seasons, 3 in a row.
Well, this last season was a pretty kick-ass year.
It was really big.
That's probably why you're building that new boat.
And that has something to do with it. Yeah. My last 3 years have been my 3 biggest years ever.
It's funny the way that you're explaining, because when you converted your boat over to being able to do crab, you went up and had no idea what you were getting into, really, right? And then the same thing, you go up and run it with Bristol Bay too.
Well, I wouldn't say the crab. We had no idea. I mean, I had crab. I had some experience in that, but it's different getting in the driver's seat now. Go figure out how to catch them.
Sure. You sound to me like a guy like myself that when you buy something from IKEA, you just throw the directions aside and you're just going to figure it all out.
Yeah. There's a lot of figuring. Yeah. Yeah,
So
and I'll tell you this: when you're figuring it out, and probably a lot of young captains in general, I can tell you, you do a lot more work than you do later. That's wasted. As you get older, I guess maybe you work smarter, not harder, as you get older.
Isn't that how it's supposed to go? Yeah. So you've been up to Bristol Bay how long now?
So that was 95. So what is that? 20 some years, 23 years, 22, 23 years.
How do you find your turnover for crew?
Oh, I really don't have that. I'm lucky to have my oldest son since he was 13. He's 23 now, so he's gone. One of his good ice hockey buddies is gone. He's a senior in college now, but he's going one more year, so he's 4 or 5 years. My youngest son goes now to be his second year, so I haven't had a problem with that.
That's great. That's great.
And I talked to other guys that do have, so I've been blessed.
Yeah. Sounds like a family tradition going on.
Family tradition. In the old days, I used to like to hire crabbers.
Yeah.
To go with me, and then I got like my nephew Griffin went for several years.
Mm-hmm.
I think Griffin went for 5 or 6 years, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Willie did several.
He did 1 year there with us.
Okay.
Yeah, he's right out of high school. So.
Yeah, we heard that story.
I heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, he said you threw him a hell of a birthday party. It sounded like.
Oh yeah.
Just a little get back to work.
His 18th birthday. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was just a kid. But tell you what, he's become quite the Bristol Bay fisherman now.
It really sounds like it.
Yeah, no, he's really, especially now that he's stepped into that bigger boat.
He paid a lot of that experience and at least the work ethic to you.
We kicked his ass, yeah.
Yeah. Almost everybody I talk to, the ones that get beat up the most, turn out to be the ones who really get their shit wired tight.
Willie always had one thing going for him. He is a hard worker. But he's big and strong.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Hey, Willie, pull on this, and it moves. I'll get out of the way.
Do you got any stories to share with us about your fishing days?
Man, there's just a million stories, really. After 40 years of it, good memories, bad memories. Years of, I wouldn't say bad memories, but years where there wasn't a lot of return. But there's some years where there was good return. I missed the king crab boom. But we kind of got in on that Opelio boom in the early 90s and did well. I had some real good king crab seasons before the rationalization.
Those were, the king crab days were definitely the days when guys were paying off boats in 1 year. How did the Opelio boom go for you?
Well, we didn't pay it off in 1 year, but, a few years, yeah.
Yeah. And still, at that time, you were young. I mean, not that you're old now, but...
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we were young. Was nothing to go do a 30-hour gear hauling stint.
But you came from a family of no fishermen.
No.
And just kind of running around these streets right here.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then here you are, and your kids are doing it.
Yeah.
Do you see them continuing to do it?
The youngest one says no. He will now for the summer. He's going to start college next year, so I'm sure we got a few years out of him. The oldest one. He see what he does after college. He's in his last half of his junior year, and depending when he does after that, I know he'd like to. He's mentioned he'd like to continue Bristol Bay, and he is a natural fisherman. Mm-hmm. That's what he does in his spare time. He's out sport fishing and that kind of stuff, and he's real good at that. So.
Right.
And he has that little experience. He did take over running the Bristol Bay boat a couple summers ago.
Oh.
For I think 8 days or something. He did real well.
Excellent. So sometime in that between 90, you said 95 when you went up, and today, that's your summer gig.
That's my summer gig. Yeah.
And I know that you purchased another boat.
Deception. The Cornelia Marie. Yeah, 3 years ago. We're investors in that. It just kind of came along. We knew Casey and kind of ran it across us, and we thought about sending the Deception back out crabbing, putting the quota on there, and the Cornelia Marie deal came along, and that's just that's a phenomenal boat. I haven't spent a lot of ocean time on it, but what I have, it's an incredible machine.
What about the Deception? When did you get that, and how did that?
We got that in '86 in Houma, Louisiana. We're near there, and it's the Deception is a great tender. Shallow draft for Bristol Bay.
Isn't she sitting right over here?
It's down in Lake Union, further down the East Lake side there. It's an okay crabber. It's a shallow draft mud boat. Wasn't really built for that. It handles the weather, but nothing like the Cornelia Emery. It doesn't carry as much. Can't carry the gear. Doesn't ride in the weather like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you crabbed with the Deception?
Oh, many years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, from 87 was the first year that boat went crabbing till rationalization. It was at 05, I guess. But
so
yeah.
you were involved right before that rationalization?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get to captain's quota?
I did, and I took a couple years off when my kids were younger and they were qualifying years. So, yeah.
Man, hindsight,
yeah,
right?
We had another guy run the boat for a while, and the qualifying years weren't big ones, so.
Oh man.
It's a sad story.
Yeah.
I could do something over again. It would probably be to have stayed on there.
Stayed on there.
Hindsight's 20/20 there.
Isn't it?
Not that we didn't get quota, but it would have been more.
Right.
There was a few qualifying years, or not. They were non-qualifying years, but right before rationalization, the last couple of years, we had a couple of really, really big king crab seasons. That, like top of the fleet kind of season, and they weren't qualifying years.
Can you describe? Because some of our listeners, they see it that it is a quota per boat now. Can you describe how that quota came about? The boat, we're talking about it right now, but how many years did you have to fish? How was that based upon for that boat to get the quota?
Oh man, the exact amount of years I don't remember, but it was qualifying years. It must have been like in the late 90s, early 2000s. You had to participate, and you got quota points by what your catch average compared to the rest of the boat. So some guys got more points than other guys.
The more you caught, the more points you got.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Did you know that they were doing it? Did you know that this is the qualifying year, or you didn't really?
We did and we didn't. Maybe it's something we should have kept.
They said it was there, but
they said it was there.
Really...
Yeah, it was a frustrating process. That whole political process during all that time. We'd go to these meetings, and it was really frustrating. You just like, what's going to come of this?
And then just all of a sudden at the end they go, okay, these are your points, and this is what you get.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so at that point, there was a lot of boats fishing up there, right?
Oh, I think the last king crab, there was like 260 or something.
Yeah.
It was too many.
Yeah. And then what happened directly after the rationalization?
Oh, it went down to, I don't know, the immediate year after, but now it's down to like 60, 70 boats, which is enough.
So what happened to those other quotas?
Well, the quotas are getting fished on other boats. Like,
sure.
We fish outside quota on the Cornelia Marine. That's what's happening. It's kind of gone from, when I first started crab fishing, there was a lot of owner-operators. That's what it was, and it was an occupation, whereas now it's a business of quota holders, and it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You
were running around up there when some of the true legends of our industry were still running around up there, thumping around.
Oh yeah, when I first started, they were Bart Eaton and guys like that. Chris Paulson was still running crab boats. Those are some of the real legends of the time that I knew of.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Bart, I can never say enough about him. Just.
Oh yeah. He talks about that one video he's on, the Pots of Gold. How he met some crab captain in the dock in Kodiak, and he goes, "Yeah, you got to realize this is like us meeting Willie Mays or something." I said, I don't know if I told him this, but I think I did. Whether he caught it, I said, "Bart, you got to understand, when guys like me met you, you were like us meeting Willie Mays.
Yeah,
you were the legend at that time."
Yeah, he kind of still is. He still got that.
Yeah.
That kick about him,
Oh, and what a storyteller!
I'm telling you. We really want to get him on here.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
We went and visited him. We were in Hawaii, and I went and visited the McManuses, Casey's parents, and they took us up to visit Bart. And I knew, of course I knew who he was. I was surprised he didn't remember my name, but he remembered me. Viking Queen, I know you. So that was like remembering me. But my kids, two youngest kids were there. They were teenagers in high school. And here's this old fart, 65, however old he was. And he's talking, for about a half hour. We left there, and my kids said, "Who is that guy? He is hilarious."
He's got the stories.
He does. Yeah.
I guess it's just part about being.
In a way, he's able to tell them too.
Yeah. Definitely well versed.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you see that? What do you see that fishing's given you?
Oh, that's all I know. So I don't know how to compare it to anything. It's been good. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably a few changes, but I'd would stick with this career. It's been good. It's exciting. You know, there's a lot of times you curse your chosen profession when you're out there in a big storm. There's been a lot of and hauling empty pots, and it's nasty out. And what am I doing here? But you know, a lot of time off too. I really enjoy that. And
Yeah.
you know, when you're home, you don't have to get up and go to work every day.
You can really engage with
Yeah. And you know, I guess the challenge of it. Like I said, I don't really have other jobs to compare it to, but what I do know, a lot of jobs, I'm sure you go to work, and at the end of the day, you don't know if you did I do a good job today? I don't know. I mean, you go to, you know, take a Bristol Bay day. We just had an 8-hour opening. You got to unload. I know whether I had a good day. I got 3. Everyone's got 8 bags. I only got 3. I didn't do very good today.
You get a little ticket.
Yeah, I got a ticket to tell us. So. And you have good days. You have bad days, and you have in between days.
So this last year, the entire year was pretty good, right?
Oh yeah. Typical Bristol Bay, it goes in spurts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you catch 90% of your fish in a handful of tides. It seems like you have some really big tides that last for a day or two or whatever, and then you might get 2 or 3 days where it's a run over and what's going on, and then a little weather picks up, and we're filling the boat up again. So
Right.
you know, you just
Well, they kind of ebb and flow, right?
they ebb and flow. Yeah, they ebb and flow.
So where do you go from here?
You mean today? Or?
No, I mean in general with your career. I mean, obviously you've invested now in the Cornelia Marie, and you're over here working on a boat right now.
I was delivering nets right
Okay.
across here to one of the cannery tenders, the Bristol Bay nets.
Mm-hmm.
Sign of spring, and send your Bristol Bay gear up.
Send your gear up, yeah.
And I'll do the Bristol Bay thing, and the last few summers I filled in for Casey, go run the Cornelia for a couple weeks of tendering after the Bay. And
When's your new boat going to be done?
within a month.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're going to be ready for the Bay.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
And when did you start that process?
They started cutting aluminum in September.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty quick.
No, it's a real reputable yard in LaConner, Washington. It's called Maverick Marine,
And your new boat's going to be called?
the Miss Magic.
And what is she powered with? Because I know you're just putting some big.
Wow. Actually, getting the budget was what they call the budget model boat, if you can believe that. It's not a budget price, but it's going to have a 9-liter John Deere, 560 horse John Deere. State of the art electronic John Deere. So cross my fingers.
How many guys you going to? 3, 4 guys on there?
There'll be myself and 3 others. Yeah.
Oh.
That's what you can. There's 4 bunks. So.
No.
Yeah. And I found it was years back in that salmon crisis years I described where it was hard to get guys too. And I went a couple years with one guy.
Just you and one guy?
Oh, me and one guy.
What were you doing, running back and helping him pick?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a couple of them, the greenhorns. No, they'd help me pick. It was all, I got wiser. Now I have 3 deckhands instead of 1. And,
Do you find it's still hard to get guys, or?
I don't have problem, but I talk to other guys too. It's one of their main hindrances. Yeah, I got family guys, and no, maybe I've been lucky that way, but I've always been able to get crew. Not always great, but for the most part, pretty good.
Do you see, or do you have any advice for guys looking to get in the industry?
Why? Yeah, we just hired a new guy on the Deception. Young kid, just came out of diesel school. Go learn to do something. You know,
Diesel school is going to already.
Yeah, he's already learned. I mean, I'm sure he's not a diesel mechanic, but he's an interest in it, and like the captain says, hey, I'm finally gonna have a crew that's actually seen a tool.
Oh, right.
So that kind of stuff. Even if you don't, that doesn't mean you can't do it. You got to work hard, listen to the captain, and try and be aware of your surroundings. There's always something. And little things matter.
Yeah.
If you're on a boat, if you can't do the little projects right, how are you going to do a big project right?
The devil's in the details.
Yeah. Pay attention. If you don't know something, don't go open that valve if you don't know what it is. Ask the engineer, even if he chews you out. You still ask him.
Something bad could happen.
Something bad could happen, yeah.
And so, in all these years, you haven't had anything bad happen like that?
Well, knock on wood. No, we've had a few close calls. had a fire one time. It was scary on the Deception out crab fishing. Hydraulic fire in the engine room. That was a little scary.
Yeah, a fire on a boat would definitely.
Yeah, gets your attention.
Yeah, all the water in the world. But
yeah, all the water in the world, but it's not putting that oil fire out.
Yeah, no.
So fortunately, I had a couple pretty savvy crew members that did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't the pilot. I can't even say that I actually saw the fire.
Smelled it.
I was in the wheelhouse talking to my radio group buddy on the radio. Hey, we're on fire. Hell,
About what year was that then? Because safety's changed so much over the years. You said they
that would have been in the early 90s, I guess, somewhere in there, 90, 91.
And back then, were they going to all these fire classes and?
Not like today. No, we'd probably had classes, but nothing like today. No.
Today, like just about everybody.
That was probably about the time where monthly safety inspections were starting to get to be commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite around that time.
But safety has changed a lot, significantly.
Yes, yeah, I'd say so. Well, rationalization made it a lot safer for one.
Sure, when you don't got this derby style, right?
You don't have the derby style, and the boats that are going now are primarily, we talked about how many boats were going. There's 260 boats fishing king crab at one time. There's probably 130 of them that probably had no business being out in the Bering Sea. So that's made it safer.
Yeah, they brought up a lot of boats from the Gulf and even from the East Coast to try to get on that boom. That
exactly.
They were not built for that water up there.
They were not built for that water. No.
Yeah, we had when we had Casey with us, he actually mentioned how strong the water is.
Yeah, these boats may look big at the dock here in Seattle, but
you get them out there.
Yeah, when you're out in the Southeast 100, which I've seen that a couple times in the Bering Sea, and just waves bigger than you even want to imagine. How big? I don't know. They're big.
Yeah, yeah. I think he worded it. He actually put it pretty well. He said, "There's a reason they use water to cut diamonds."
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, normally we would read a letter from someone that wrote in, but we don't have any letters.
No
that someone
letters.
Wrote in
Okay.
Today. So, Kari, I can't thank you enough for coming and sitting
my
with us
pleasure.
today.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you feel like you need to tell us?
No, not really. Not really, but let's go back to a young guy. It's not for everybody, for starters. You get out in a boat and you either like it or you don't, or you catch on or you don't. There's kind of a common sense that maybe you have or maybe you don't. And you won't really know till you're there, really, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But once it gets into your blood,
be careful.
Be careful. It'll ruin you for a real job. I know that.
Yeah, it's funny you say it like that, because a lot of guys are like, "Oh, I can handle a boat because I've been out jet skiing," or
Yeah.
or I go, a friend of mine has a 22-foot boat, and we used to go out for the day, and that kind of thing. But I mean, it's real work out there.
It's real work out there, yeah, and the conditions are real.
And the platform is moving all the time.
Oh, it's like, it's like being inside a paint can that's sitting in a paint mixer getting stirred.
How well put. How well put.
Especially on a Bristol Bay boat. It's really that. And this is for months it goes on. It's not just for an afternoon.
Well, a Bristol Bay boat, I mean, let's describe that again. Willie went into it a little bit, but paint the picture of these, because they're small boats.
The 32 feet.
Yeah. And that's the maximum,
That's
right?
the maximum they can be, state law.
They cannot be bigger.
They cannot be bigger.
So 32 feet long, how wide are they?
The widest one I think I saw last year got widened was like 21 feet or something crazy
Lord.
like that. But my new one's going to be 13 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably about the average. There's bigger, wider ones.
13 and a half by 32. You're a bobber.
You're a bobber, yeah.
You're getting in even 6 or 7 foot seas, and you're
really, you're
really
pretty
tossing
good. Yeah,
hard.
they have to be able to take that, because there are times.
Yeah.
Bristol Bay, you're near shore, but there's so much current.
That's one. I was going to say that's one of the fastest currents.
You got current going out and tide coming in, and go around the Ecuck rips or something, and hang on.
Yeah. So any last minute?
Not that I can think of. No.
No? Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk to us today.
Well, thanks for having me, and a beautiful vessel you have here. Nice location.
Yeah, well, you can't really beat the view.
Yeah, waterfront is nice.
Well, it's probably changed a lot from when you grew up around here, for sure. I mean, Marco was sitting there.
Yeah, that has changed. There was a lot more industry in Ballard. You know, there was shake mills and, you know, the old recycle steel mill and, you know, a hydraulic shop in Marco and this or that. And, you know, it's, as we all know, a lot of apartments and condos. And
Boy, they're going up. They're going up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, again, thank you. Guys, this has been another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. And if you can contact us, write in those letters. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions for Kari or any of our previous captains that have visited us, at mark@galleystories.net. And we will see you next time.